Earlier this week, we had on Raquel Goldie, who is the in-arena host for the Florida Panthers and now the official correspondent for the 2018 PBC. And today, we are going to have someone very special. This person we've tried before to have everything work out, but unfortunately it didn't in the past. So we're going to try take two. It's a live show, so we work with these difficulties and the challenges, but we keep persevering, and hopefully today we'll be able to make it happen. So today is episode 9 of the Elevate Beyond show. I am your host, Jake Kelfer, and our guest today for the second interview of the week is Alexis Teichmiller. Alexis is one of my really good friends. She's one of the most vulnerable, authentic, amazing people I have ever had the chance of meeting and getting to know. And she's also the host of the Laptop Lifestyle, which is an incredible podcast that I've been on and so many other incredible people have been on as well. So I'm going to bring her in right now, and then we will get this party started. Let's do it. All right, Alexis, bringing you in. Kevin, what's going on? Sherry, a.k.a. my mom, previous guest. How are you? Alexis, hey, we'll get you in just a second.
Hi.
It worked. It worked.
Okay.
We did it. It worked.
Awesome. Yay.
How are you?
I am so good. How are you, friend?
I am great. I'm great. Those glasses, fuego.
Thank you, Warby Parker.
I'll plug them, right?
Oh, yeah.
So let's just jump into it. There's so many things that we can talk about. Every time we talk, it tends to go on for way too long, but today we got to keep it short and beautiful. So the first things first, let me just hear, who is Alexis Teichmiller? Where do you live? What do you do? What's the journey?
Yeah. Hi, guys. I'm Alexis. So my full hustle is I'm the affiliate manager for a software startup called ConvertKit, and I run their affiliate program. ConvertKit is an email marketing service provider for online creators, bloggers, and I absolutely love my job. We're a remote company. So as a byproduct of being remote, I live a laptop lifestyle, which I have a podcast called The Laptop Lifestyle, where I interview people who are building communities or businesses online. And I love my podcast. I love the community that we built there, similar to what you're doing here, Jake. And then I also am a content creator for hospitality brands and tourism boards. So I partner with hotels and tourism boards to create lifestyle content for their websites and social media. So I kind of wear a lot of random hats. I love to travel. I love frequent flyer miles and adventure, and I'm a foodie. So that kind of like sums up what I do and who I am.
That's incredible. So there's a lot to but let's talk about the podcast.
Yeah.
I've been on it. I was on one of the earlier episodes, and I want to hear about how you started it and why you started it and what it's become, because it's grown so much, and I think that that's something that a lot of people can learn a lot from.
Yeah. So I started the podcast, it'll be 2 years in August. So I would say it's a little over a year and a half old. And I started it because I was working a remote job even before ConvertKit. I've never had a traditional, conventional office job out of college. I've always had a remote job. So I was kind of struggling to find community though online. Like, living a laptop lifestyle has its perks. However, it's kind of hard to find that connection. And so that's kind of why I started the podcast. It's honestly been a massive game changer for my brand. I think podcasting allows you to really build this really intimate connection with your audience. So you get to share long form communication, whereas an Instagram post, you're competing for people's attention. Whereas, a 20, 45 minute episode, people are locked in, they're listening to your voice, and they're really getting to know who you are. And so my podcast has helped grow all of my other channels, which has been really cool to see. And so I think it's really important to figure out, where is your audience hanging out? And what do they want to hear? What are they needing to hear? And then how can you be that voice to serve them?
And you've built up your community mostly on Instagram, right? That's your main tool. Why Instagram?
Well, Instagram is a very visual platform. And as a content creator for brands, Instagram's kind of become my portfolio. So whenever I'm approaching a hospitality brand or a tourism board, I send people there to look at all my work. But also I really like photography, and I love travel. And you know, traveling as a solo person, I love asking strangers. Like if you guys go to my Instagram, a lot of the photos have either been taken by strangers or people that are not photographers. And so I love like pushing the limits a little bit, and that's really fun. So I like to share a long form, almost like a journal entry or a blog post in my Instagram caption to really kind of draw out more of a vulnerable conversation versus like, here's what I'm wearing today, or look what I did today. It's more so here's what I'm learning right now, and here's how I hope to help you with what I'm learning.
And you do a great job on Instagram. I look forward to seeing your posts all the time. But
thank you.
You say you have strangers take your photos as well as friends. No. Now, a lot of people are just uncomfortable taking photos of either selfies themselves or of friends taking them. But you're literally take photos of you for your social media. How do you have the self-awareness to do that? The just true, authentic Alexis vibe that is willing to talk to a stranger and say, hey, can you take a picture for me for Instagram? Like fall into a type even more. And amazing though how you've been able to transcend that into something so great.
Yeah, so when it comes to asking people to take my photo, and again, like I have Jessica Stedham, you had her on your show a couple weeks ago. She's like my main photographer and one of my best friends here in Nashville. So she takes a lot of my photos. As far as like seeking out somebody, I always try to seek out someone that is around my age who understands how to work a phone, like who really gets like photos. And then what I'll do is I'll literally give them my phone. I will frame the shot and show them exactly what I want them to take the photo of. This is important. I'm setting expectations for them. Like this is exactly the frame I want. And then I'll say, okay, I want you to hit the button like 15 times and I'm going to move around a bunch. And they're always like, okay. And then I literally just go over there and I move around and I like try to get the shot. And I always talk about movement a lot when it comes to photography. If you want to have more of a candid lifestyle approach to your brand, a lot of the best content comes from in between movement. So instead of just like hitting a pose, it's more so that in between movement that captures the best life, I would say, in a photo. And so then once they take 15 photos, I've got at least one that I know is going to be good. And then when it comes to my feed, I don't look at Instagram as posting one photo. I look at my top 9 like a magazine. And so I look at how everything's going to look together congruently. Because whenever someone stumbles upon your Instagram page, they're looking at everything. They're not looking at just one photo. So whenever you post that one thing, you want to be aware of, I mean, if you care about your Instagram brand, you want to be aware about what else you're posting around it so that it looks cohesive and that you're actually building somewhat of a similar look. So I use the same filters for a lot of my photos so that they have a same, aesthetic.
It's obviously to have a good social media presence. But what do you really strive to talk about and what do you really want? Because at the end of the day, they're just photos.
Right.
What you share with the world is really the message. And what is the message that you like to share?
Yeah. So you hit the nail on the head. Really, photos are just kind of a vehicle in order to share what I want to say in the caption. So I want to capture people's attention with the photo, but then I want to keep them there with something really intriguing or thought-provoking in the caption. And so something that's really important to me is vulnerability. And I have become a much more self-aware person, and I feel like as a byproduct of that, I've been able to cultivate really amazing opportunities and connections with people because I come from a very true place of just showing up as I am. And so vulnerability means to me, and it means something different to everyone, but vulnerability to me means being brave enough to show up as you are in your own skin and not care what anybody else thinks about you. And so are you able to show up in your own skin? And so I talk a lot about that on my Instagram page, and some challenges and the ups and downs that come along with being vulnerable. But I mean, even being vulnerable in your career, asking for a raise or, negotiating your salary or going into your boss and talking about, your vision for the company and how you hope to make that happen. Like vulnerability isn't something that you just take inside of your relationships. It's also something that you have to be really confident in who you are and what you want. And you can take that into your career and into networking and into so many other things. But if you're so scared to show up and be who you actually are and fight for what you actually want, then you're always going to feel like you're not living the life that you truly want to live. You're living a life that other people think you should. And so really like stepping into who you are and making sure that who you are and what you want are aligned, so that you can actually go out and be your best self, which sounds a little cliche. I understand that, but it's really important to be very honest with yourself and be very aware of what are your strengths, what are your weaknesses, what do you bring to the table, what about you is unique, and that is your kind of special mojo or your secret sauce. And then you can take that everywhere you go, because no one can take that away from you. And that's really important.
Beautiful. That was so, I mean, I'm just over here just vibing. But everyone saying you got some great stuff. But here, I want to go even a little bit deeper. People tend to the word vulnerability, and they associate it typically with weakness. And I think that is something that I want you to dissect, because I think vulnerability for you and vulnerability for me is one of our strengths, especially for how you go about this topic and approach it. How can you elaborate on that and talk about vulnerability is not a weakness, but it's actually a strength that can create opportunity and awareness of yourself and others?
Right. Well, first I want to ask a question. Have you ever grown? Like, whenever you think about all of the big growing seasons of your life, Jake, what is the one common denominator?
Like in just any situation, like growing?
Like, if you're growing, you probably feel this. You probably feel uncomfortable.
Yeah,
Like,
I mean, yeah, there's definitely some feeling of being uncomfortable in a lot of situations. But I think also for me, it's the fact of like, I have these crazy big visions and these crazy big stuff. And yes, it may be uncomfortable, but the biggest thing I think is just like, you got to just do it. And you don't come from it, but you got to do it. And you can take the right actions and things like that. But definitely being uncomfortable, like writing my first book is uncomfortable. Creating this combine's uncomfortable. Getting on Instagram Live and doing this every week is sometimes, but I like it. Like, I have fun. I get great conversation. So I guess, being uncomfortable is definitely something that I would agree with you on change.
Right. And so when it comes to being uncomfortable, there's something about leaning into that discomfort that allows you to actually kind of show up and be who you are in that discomfort, because you're putting something on the line. You're risking something in order to get something of higher reward in return, like, hopefully. So when it comes to like a deeper dive into vulnerability, I would say it is an opportunity for you to grow and to bring people along with you in that discomfort, to grow with you. That's not weakness, that's influence. Like, whenever you can be very honest about a struggle or a challenge and you can share that with someone, you actually open the door for someone else to share too, for someone else to come forward. And we've seen this a lot in, especially lately, when someone's vulnerable enough to share something terrible that happened to them. They make a wave of change. They create a movement of people that are willing and feel safe enough to come forward because one strong person was willing to do it first. And so I think that goes in a lot, when it comes to women breaking the glass ceiling, when it comes to women negotiating their salaries, or when it comes to 3-year-olds breaking away from corporate life and starting their own businesses. Like, who do we think we are? Well, we're vulnerable, really, if you think about it, because we're putting something out there on the line, risking it all in order to get something back. And so, if anything, I think it's one of the strongest things that you can do is to be very, very open, very honest, and very transparent through the journey. I think a lot of the times we want to portray this mask that we have it all together, and that we're perfect, and that we know this perfect plan. And as much as we all like to think that, because that's what society kind of puts in our ears, I call it the path of should. You should go to college, you should get a corporate job, you should get married, you should have 3 kids, you should live in a cul-de-sac. Like, there's all these things, okay, that society tells us we should do. And just kind of throwing that out the window and focusing on, okay, like putting your hand on your heart and trying to figure out what is it that it feels true to. Like, what actually feels good to me. And that's power. Like, that's true power. And whenever you can take that and you can share it with people, that's true influence. And so I have a struggle with the word influencer, because I think people abuse the responsibility that comes along with influence. True influence are people that are brave enough to show up as they are and lead people along with them in a positive direction, not consumerism. But that's a whole other topic.
So how have you been vulnerable recently? In the last 3 months, in the last month, how have you been vulnerable talk about this all we want. We can theorize and come up with
Totally.
these great words and
For
experience.
sure.
Give me something on how you're vulnerable in your day-to-day life, been vulnerable about in the last few months.
Right. I think that's a really good point. That's something that Jess and I talk about a lot. Is it's really easy to talk about vulnerability like you're removed from it. You can talk about how important it is, but you actually have to dive in and do it yourself. And so actually last week, I'll give you a very fresh example. On my podcast last week, I did a solo cast on how I had to walk away from a book deal that meant a lot to me. And I was actually had already written the outline with the publishing house. It was for a book called The Laptop Lifestyle, which is my podcast. And so I had to walk away because the contract was not beneficial to me in the long term, to say the very least. And I had worked on it with them for almost 3 months, and then I got both contracts they offered me, and I had to walk away. And that was one of the most soul-crushing experiences for me, because I don't know, for any of you guys watching, you get to this place in your career where you really, really want something and you see it start to happen, and then it starts to happen, and then you get to the point where it's like the make it or break it fork in the road, and you have to say no to it because it's not a good fit. That's so hard. And I was soul crushed. Like, I was so sad. I didn't release a podcast for like 2 months. I really stopped posting on Instagram. I was just really, my creativity had taken a massive tank because I felt so tied to this thing that could have happened and then it didn't. And so I released the podcast. I might have even cried on the podcast, and I've never done that before. And I felt like my stomach kind of dropped when I hit publish on it, but I knew when your stomach kind of drops when you're about to do something, it's going to be good. And I got so many people in my DMs and in my inbox and replying back to me saying that it was one of their favorite episodes because they had felt something similar and that they were able to get over a creative slump because of the story I shared. And it wasn't about me. My story was just the vehicle for them to transform, you know? And so I think that it was hard for me to share because it was honestly a big ego blow to like have this book deal and be really excited. And we're working on this massive marketing campaign and a 20-city tour for the launch, like all this stuff. And then it be gone. And that was really hard. And so I shared that on the podcast. And so that was a difficult one, but you know, you got to show up. You can't just talk vulnerability. You have to live it out.
Well, thanks for sharing that on this, because again, talk about it, I'm sure it brings you back to those memories and that tough time, but I appreciate you sharing it here. And I also know that sometime in the near future, there will be a new book deal for you that will turn into be the right time and the right place for you. I think that's also something about vulnerability and authenticity that people can understand, is that, yeah, we can be vulnerable, we can put on the line, but even if it's not now, it doesn't mean it's never. And we can to build, we can continue to grow, we can continue to learn and meet and love people. And when we can do all of things, that's what helps the vulnerability come through. And, you know, you just symbolize that beautifully. And when we spent time in Nashville, I got to see it. I mean, it's just amazing. And for anyone listening, you have to go right now, go to Lifestyle, make that a regular on your podcast list. The interviews are awesome. And most importantly, though, so let's get into the final few questions.
Okay.
And we just be respectful of our audience. I think we could go on for hours, like we have in the past. But for now, let's keep this an appropriate. So one of the questions is relationships. You are vulnerable in your career. You're vulnerable in your personal life. How are you vulnerable and open? Because you've done long distance and it's been tough, but you continue to push through. And when the time is right for you guys to live together or be together again, that's going to be happening sometime. So take me through that, and we'll start to kind of wrap it up on this note.
Yeah, as far as our relationship with Matthew. Okay. Yeah. So this is another part about living a laptop lifestyle, is you have to find someone that's really supportive of your dreams and that's really supportive of this life that you want to live, this travel and being kind of a digital nomad. You also have to find a partner who's willing to stand beside you and encourage you through that. And so I have been lucky enough to find someone that is so supportive, and we both are massive dreamers. And that kind of goes back. We're both 24. We've done long distance. We've been long distance for 4 years, the whole time we've been dating. And so like, he's in grad school. He's a petroleum geologist. So guys, like he's a scientist. So he's a scientist and I'm an internet, marketer, podcaster, blogger. So we have a really interesting paradox of careers, but what's important to us is we both want to do the same things from like a core value standpoint. We both want to do work that matters. We both want to influence people from a positive way, and we both want to be lights for God. And so no matter what career we do, we can hopefully accomplish all three of those things. And so I think it's just finding someone that really supports your vision. And if you are with someone that is questioning, your entrepreneurial path or, your goals or your dreams or, really deteriorating your core values, then it's probably a sign that you shouldn't be with them. So in order to really be with someone long-term, you have to support and respect each other's goals and dreams. It's so important. So, yeah.
Okay. So how can we connect with you after we're done here? Talked about the lifestyle of the podcast. How can people, what's your Instagram handle, all that good jazz?
Yeah. So my Instagram handle is just Alexis Teichmiller. It's right here in the
somewhere on
live. So yeah, just follow me on Instagram. Or DM me. I'd love to connect with you guys there. I always encourage people to DM me. I'm always DMing. So, and I'm very active on Insta stories. So I'm very transparent on there right now. I'm actually, my 25th birthday is next month. And so every single day in April, I've been sharing a lesson that I've been learning in my 25 years of life. And so every day you're going to get a lesson from me if you follow me on Instagram. And then also you can check out my podcast. If you just type in The Laptop Lifestyle on any of your podcast players, I will be there. So you can subscribe, listen to a show, check it out. And the big reason I created the podcast was to create community for people who are remote and have crazy dreams and just want to build connection. And so I'd love to connect with you guys. And that's how, honestly, Jake and I met, was through Instagram. I randomly emailed him and asked him to be on my podcast. And now he's one of my best friends. So the internet's a cool place.
It is a cool place. So as we get ready for our final question, if anybody has been listening to this from the beginning till now, or you're loving this right now, go ahead and just put in the comment, I love this, I love Alexis, I love whatever. DM or follow her, make that happens, and we'll connect. Before we do the last one, I just want to acknowledge you, Alexis. Like, this has been so fun. We've been trying to do this for a long time, and I knew that having you on a regular episode, it was going to be something of passion. It was going to be something that was going to be really great and powerful. And I think that it's awesome when somebody brings so much value to a conversation and an experience. And for me, and I hope that everyone else feels this way, whenever I talk to you, I leave with some takeaway, something that I'm going to say, yes, I can go do, I can be me, I can be real, right? And so I acknowledge you for all of those amazing things, and I can't wait to see you again.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you and your energy and your passion. And something I love about Jake is that he'll call me up and he'll be like, what's going on? What are you working on? Like, how can I help you? How can I kick your butt? And he's always been so encouraging and honestly a great accountability partner. So another key is to go out and find someone who will push you and be like a peer-to-peer mentor, which I love. And hi, Kristen.
And so here we go. The last question is, what is your definition of success?
Of success?
Of success.
So my definition of success is growth. So as long as I'm growing, I'm feeling challenged, I'm feeling uncomfortable, I feel like I'm really turning into someone better every single day, that's my idea of success. I used to think success meant money or titles or ego-driven, accomplishments. And it's still difficult for my personality type to not default to that. But it's so important for me to go back every single day and really measure success from growth. And because I know that I'm going to be most successful when I'm growing. And so that might not mean the highest salary or, the ego, whatever, driven activities, but it really is something that's the most fulfilling. And so I want to live a life that is fulfilling, long-term, and sustainable, not something that's just like a get-rich-quick, ego feeding kind of thing. So my definition of success is growth.
Growth to true influence. That is beautiful. And everybody, thank you so much for tuning in to this episode of the Elevate Beyond Show. Alexis, thank you for coming on. We appreciate you, and we will have you back on sometime.
Awesome. Thanks, guys.
Awesome. Take care, everybody.